The Scientist by Talking Soup. Chapter 5. For Science. Listen, Doctor. All I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with taking some time off. Dr. Beatus was practically flailing. Gaster was almost surprised he hadn't started hyperventilating yet. You just survived a terrible attack. You're still injured. You should be at home resting. What if that mad monster comes back? Dr. Beatus and 3 other scientists had all but cornered Gaster in his office. The Royal Guards had just finished investigating the crime scene and had finally left. They hadn't managed to find any evidence of who the attacker was or where they had gone. Everyone seemed much more concerned that Gaster was alive, and that the criminal hadn't succeeded in stealing the human souls. Clearly, that was what they had broken into the lab for, after all. Gaster gave all of the scientists a warm smile despite his annoyance.
I assure you all I'm just fine, just a bit rattled.
He delicately touched the crack in his face as if it was an embarrassment.
But it barely hurts anymore. This attack just proves that we must work harder and faster. We must do our best to give the entire underground the power of the human soul.
Sir, you know we're all just worried about you, said one of the other scientists. What was his name again?
I do appreciate that.
Gaster stood and crossed the room to the gaggle of concerned scientists.
But I don't intend to let myself be intimidated. I have far too much work to do. I couldn't possibly take a day off. I promise I will go home early tonight. Would that be satisfactory?
He laid one hand on Dr. Beatus's shoulder and the other on the shoulder of one whose name Gaster had forgotten. They all looked at each other with expressions of varying doubt and worry. I suppose that's all we can ask for. As long as you promise. And get plenty of rest tonight.
Of course,
Gaster said and started steering them toward his office door.
Now please, thank you for your concern, but I have work to do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we'll let you get back to... Gaster closed the door behind them, then slumped against the door with an exasperated sigh. At least that was taken care of. Now he could finish writing down his findings in peace. He took a seat at his desk again and unlocked one of the drawers, pulling out a notebook. These reports would be entirely for his benefit. He couldn't risk someone else learning about what he had done. The entire underground would then be clamoring for access to determination. Other monsters might not react to it as well as Gaster had. There were some lingering side effects that were concerning. Every once in a while, the energy constantly rushing through him would spike, to the point of almost being difficult to control. His head ached on and off. His color vision hadn't fully come back, and he was starting to think that it wasn't going to. Occasionally, his thoughts ran away from him and scrambled themselves. The physical effects were one thing, but Gaster was more worried about the psychological effects. He needed to keep a careful watch for any odd changes in his behaviors. Determination was a powerful thing. He could compare it to what he imagined absorbing a human soul must be like, but absorbing a human soul didn't seem to have the same instability. Not that he had much evidence for that. No one but Asgore and Toriel had actually witnessed Azrael's transformation, departure, and return. Perhaps it would be best to stop the determination experiments altogether, or at least until Gaster was sure of the nature and extent of the side effects. There was a knock at his door. Gaster stifled a grumble. He slid the notebook back into the drawer and locked it.
Come in.
The door opened. It was Sans. Gaster couldn't help a relieved smile. Of all the people he had to talk to right now, Sans was the most tolerable. Hey, Doc. Sorry, am I interrupting?
Not at all, Sans.
I would have come by sooner, but I was double and triple checking downstairs. There's a lot of crap that criminal could have gotten at, but it looks like everything's fine, apart from what the guards already found. Man, it's a good thing they ran into you. We'd be pretty boned if some random jerk had gotten one of those souls. Gaster chuckled.
Indeed. I believe my presence must have spooked them. I suppose that I scared them soulless.
Sans blinked in amused surprise. Holy crap, did you just make a joke? Wow, I'm impressed. You sure you're feeling okay? You sure you didn't get hit in the head too hard? Not that you would take time off even if you had. Gaster propped his chin on a hand and tried to keep from outright grinning.
I'm glad that you know me well enough not to ask me to.
Sans shrugged. I trust you. Just don't expect me to catch you if you suddenly drop. He paused. Joking aside, I'm glad you're all right. Where would the underground be without the good Dr. Gaster? Gaster's smile flickered just slightly.
Where indeed?
I gotta get back to my research, but you think you'll be up for Grillby's later?
I could certainly use a drink after today's goings-on. I will see you then.
Sure thing, Sans said, and turned to leave. He stopped with his hand on the door handle. It's kinda strange, right? That whoever broke in made it down to the basement lab. I mean, half the staff doesn't even know about the basement, and the public sure doesn't. How'd they know it even existed? And how'd they know the souls were down there? Gaster stared at the back of Sans' skull. Sans didn't turn back to face him.
Strange.
He said neutrally.
Perhaps they had inside information.
Perhaps. Sans shrugged as if it didn't matter. Ah, well, I'm sure the guards will catch him. See you later, Doc. With that, he was gone. Gaster reached up to rub the side of his head. The headache had come back. Gaster made up a few legitimate-sounding reasons, and the determination experiments were discontinued. The determination extractor was moved to a storage room, and the test mice moved to a separate lab near the rest of the test animals. There was no sense in getting rid of them entirely, as they could still yield some interesting data. Gaster wanted to keep an eye on them personally, just in case. A small handful of them had shown marked increases in intelligence and problem-solving skills ever since the experiments began. Gaster, Sans, and Dr. Beatus turned their attentions to the time machine instead. The math involved was sound, and Dr. Beatus was confident he could engineer and construct the thing, but creating a power source and a safe way to channel soul energy was presenting some interesting problems. It was nice, Gaster thought, to be able to work on all of this without desperation and the looming specter of death constantly hovering over him. The work became an entertaining challenge instead of a source of frustration. While the side effects of determination continued to plague him, the good vastly outweighed the bad. He had more energy. He felt more alive than he had in years? Decades? He couldn't remember how long. He smiled more, laughed more easily, and most importantly of all, he felt powerful. Gaster had never been a weak monster, but he had always relied more on science and his own intelligence more than his magic. Now magic flowed through him as easily as water flowed through the channels in Waterfall. Now summoning a storm of bullets was virtually effortless. With power like this, save and reset finally seemed within reach. Perhaps he would even be able to create a save point on his own, without needing the help of the souls. When no one else was around, he tested himself and his limits. Determination would unlock save and reset. He just needed to figure out how. But after weeks and then months of testing himself, nothing ever happened. There was something fundamental he was missing about the nature of save and reset. Something that the sheer, raw power of determination couldn't affect. Instead of letting himself become frustrated, Gaster turned his energy toward a different project. "I'm not sure I follow," Sans was saying. They were in the basement lab late one night, both at separate computers. Sans had been neck-deep in calculus equations for the better part of the day, and was looking more exhausted than usual. Right now, he was half-turned in his computer chair, one arm draped over the back, frowning in confusion at Gaster.
I believe I spoke rather clearly, Sans.
Gaster said with a mild smile.
I want to give you power.
Yeah, I got that much. I'm just kinda lost on the how and why, and the what did you even mean by that? Gaster turned back to his computer and brought up a series of images, charts, and fluctuating graphs.
I've been thinking a lot about your predicament, so I started running some tests and simulations. I believe that it is entirely possible to safely grant you power enough to have full access to your magic, and to at least increase your defenses, to finally level the playing field for you.
Gaster looked over at Sans, but the skeleton didn't look as excited as Gaster had hoped. Mostly, he still just looked confused.
You don't seem happy.
Sans blinked his eye sockets. Oh, I'm flattered, Doc. It's just kind of sudden. I thought we were done with the determination experiments.
This would not be achieved through determination.
Gaster tapped on the screen, pulling up a graphic of a simulated monster soul that seemed to be throbbing with power.
We would be utilizing the raw power of the human souls instead. Your ideas for powering our little time machine project were what gave me the idea.
Sans got to his feet and went to Gaster's desk so he could see the screen better. He stood just behind Gaster's chair while Gaster tapped through the simulations.
Human and monster souls have always been compatible with each other. If they were not, then absorbing a human soul would never have been a possibility. Souls are filled with many kinds of things, but primarily they are filled with energy. If the souls themselves are compatible, then it obviously stands to reason that the energy contained within these souls is also compatible. It is a simple matter of converting energy from the human souls into magic, and using that magic to directly augment a monster's soul. In this case, your soul. It is the same general idea as a monster using human soul power to channel colored attacks, all while needing to absorb the soul. With only one human soul, this could likely be possible without damaging it, but with two human souls, it could be, as they say, a cakewalk.
Sans studied the graphs and simulations. Gaster pulled up a long series of equations for him to read. Let Sans check all the work he wanted. Gaster was certain he hadn't forgotten anything or made any errors. This is fascinating, Sans said after a while. And it looks really legit, but why bother? There's always the chance this could harm the souls, right? Not to mention my own soul.
The chances of that are very, very slim. I would never put your soul at risk, Sans.
Yeah, it's not that I'm worried about so much. Your work is as flawless as ever here. Sans stuffed his hands in his pockets. I guess I just don't know why you would bother. I know we talked about this before, but I kinda thought you weren't being serious. Heh, not that you're ever being anything but serious, right?
Why bother?
Gaster rotated his chair so that he could look Sans full in the face.
You are my friend, Sans. I want you to be safe. What if it had been you at the night of the break-in?
Sans smirked and shrugged. I'm really good at dodging.
And if their bullet pattern had been so complex, if you had been caught off guard, if you made a misstep and didn't dodge in time, if it had been a human with true intent to kill.
Sans looked away. Then I guess I would have been pretty boned. Heh. But I've lived like this my whole life, Doc. I kinda had to make peace with the idea of dying a long time ago. Gaster couldn't understand why Sans was making this so difficult. Didn't he want to feel powerful? Didn't he want to feel even a fraction of what Gaster felt? Perhaps a bit of guilt would grease the wheels.
I have not made peace with the idea, Sans. I don't know how much longer I have left. When I am gone, you will be the one to continue the work on Save and Reset. It will fall to you to find a way to free monsters from the underground. Who will I count on if something happens to you?
Sans rubbed the back of his skull, looking almost sheepish. Geez, Doc. Time to pull back a little. Gaster sighed.
I'm sorry. Forgive me for sounding so dramatic. I understand your trepidation. and I will not push any further. If you do not wish to do it, then...
Hey, I never said I didn't want to. It's just, Sans gave a rather shaky grin and spread his arms. You resign yourself to the idea of living a certain way forever, and then someone offers you a way out, and it just seems too good to be true, yeah? Like it couldn't be that easy. You know how many doctors tried to fix me when I was a kid? Gaster nodded sincerely.
I understand that, Sans. Of course there will be risks, and there's always the chance that it wouldn't work. I would not want to get your hopes up only to have it fail.
No, Yeah, let's do it. Let's give it a try.
Are you certain?
Yeah. Sans' grin looked more genuine now. Yeah, I am. What's the worst that could happen? Heh, remind me to never say that again. Anyway, if nothing else, the potential scientific breakthroughs are worth any risk. So, let's do it. Sans winked. For science. Gaster beamed.
Excellent. I'm glad of your willingness, Sans. I believe I can have the soul conversion system up in a matter of days. I merely need to run a few last-minute simulations. One can never be too careful.
He turned back to his computer and started typing. There was no time to waste. A few days, huh? Wow, that fast, huh? Guess I better get myself ready.
I believe in you, Sans.
There was a pause before Sans spoke again. Hey, Doc, can you promise me one thing?
What is it?
Gaster asked, distracted with building the new simulation. Can you promise me that this whole thing, that altering my soul and gaining magic, that it won't change me? I mean, won't change who I am?
Of course, Sans. I promise.
Sans was visibly nervous when he walked into the lab that night. Gaster and Dr. Beatus were already waiting, having borrowed an X-ray room in the medical wing. They weren't exactly taking X-rays, but the room had all the equipment they needed. The rest of the lab was empty. Gaster smiled brightly when Sans knocked on the door.
You're later than usual, Sans. Even for you.
Papyrus was a bit fussier than usual tonight. Sans tried to look nonchalant and slipped out of his lab coat. I wanted to make sure he got a really good bedtime story. Just in case I'm not back home till late or something.
The process should not take more than a few minutes, and any side effects will be quite minimal.
Gaster said as he started running the necessary programs on the computer.
And I can all but guarantee you that nothing will go so wrong as to prevent you from returning to your brother with all promptness.
Gaster had been over the simulations and tests and projections 1,000 times at this point. He supposed it made sense for Sans to still be nervous in spite of that. His life would change forever after tonight. Gaster just wished his friend could be a bit more excited at the prospect. It wasn't like Gaster was going to let him die, or even come to harm. You don't have to go through with this if you don't want to, Sans, Dr. Beatus said, taking Sans' lab coat and draping it over the back of a chair. It's got to be scary. Sans waved a hand. No way. How could I pass up a chance to be part of something this big? I'd have to be a real bonehead to turn back now. Dr. Beatus laughed and Gaster chuckled. Sans grinned back at them both, but Gaster could see he was sweating. I'd, be lying if I said I wasn't a little, nervous. But only a little. So, let's get started, right? What should I do? Gaster laid what he hoped was a comforting hand at Sans' back, and steered him toward the chair that was in the center of the room. Sans was trembling slightly.
Go ahead and take a seat. We already have everything set up. All we have to wait for is the machine to power up and the program to run.
He gestured at the softly humming X-ray machine. It was built into a tube-like structure not unlike the barrel of a gun, which extended like an arm from the wall. Dr. Beatus had spent the last few days repurposing the thing. It could never be used for actual X-rays again, but oh well. The 2 human souls, still in their containers, had been slotted into the machine like batteries. Sans climbed into the seat and stared at the tube. Nice design, Dr. Beatus. Doesn't look freaky at all. I didn't make it for aesthetics, Sans. Gaster shifted the machine on its arm so that it was pointed squarely at Sans' chest.
The machine will convert the energy in the human souls into magic. It will then channel that magic directly into your soul. The trick will be keeping the stream of magic constant, so as not to overwhelm your soul. From there, your soul will do the rest of the work, sending the magic where needed.
Yeah, I remember. I've been reading all over your guys' notes for days now. So... Sans gripped the arms of the chair. Ready when you are. Gaster flipped a few switches while Dr. Beatus typed on the computer. The machine's hum grew louder and the human souls began to glow brighter. Sans took a few deep breaths.
You'll be just fine, Sans. Though this may feel rather strange. Try to relax.
I'm relaxed. I'm the chillest guy I know. Heck, I should see about moving to Snowdon. That's how chill I am. Dr. Beatus hit one last button on the computer, then turned to them. Ready over here. The computer will regulate the magical flow and automatically shut down if anything goes wrong. Which it won't. Don't worry, Sans. I trust you guys, Sans said, closing his eyes for a moment. The machine finished powering up. Gaster's finger hovered over a large button. He looked over at Sans. The skeleton looked so much smaller than normal in the enormous chair. Sans wasn't just nervous. He was scared. Was this really worth it? Just to test what a human soul could accomplish? And what a weak soul like Sans could become? A small voice in Gaster's mind whispered, yes.
Ready?
Sans gave him a thumbs up. Hit me, Doc. Gaster pushed the button. The machine made a veen sound, and a stream of brilliant white monster magic shot straight into Sans. Sans' entire body gave a violent jerk, and he inhaled sharply. The lights in his eyes shrank to pinpricks.
Sans?
Whoa. That's weird. Sans touched a shaking hand to the spot right below where the beam entered his chest. Is that what a soul feels like? Gaster and Dr. Beatus exchanged a glance. It was working.
So far, so good. Just a few more minutes, Sans. You're doing wonderfully.
Always happy to please. Sans' voice was shaking. His hand tightened in the fabric of his sweater. It's fine. I'm fine. It's just... we... Sans trailed off and his head dipped forward a little. He squeezed his eye sockets shut. Gaster frowned. Doc, is it supposed to hurt this much? Dr. Beatus gave a little gasp. What? It shouldn't. He turned back to the computer. It's running normally, just like all the simulations. Gaster examined the machine. It was still operating within safe parameters. Everything seemed normal. That there was pain was surprising, but not unexpected. A soul as weak as Sans might not adapt to the new surplus of magic right away.
Sans, your soul just needs a few moments to adjust. The pain will pass.
It hurts.
Sans?
Doctor, maybe we should shut it down, Dr. Beatus said, wringing his hands. This can't be right. I must have miscalculated the...
It's working exactly as it should. How are his vitals?
They're within a safe range, but I'm okay. God, it's getting worse.
It'll be okay, Sans. I promise. Just bear with it for a few more moments, alright? Stopping in the middle might cause damage to you or the souls. Just a few more moments, Sans, and then it'll be over.
Sans' breathing had become labored. His whole body was shaking. Wisps of pale energy filtered out from between his bones like smoke.
Sans, please try to relax. Just a little longer. Your soul knows what to do. It's just not used to this much.
Sans gave a strangled little whimper and went rigid. The bottom dropped out of Gaster's stomach. He had never heard a sound like that.
It hurts. Please, it hurts. It feels like I'm burning. Please.
Doctor, we need to shut it down.
Not yet, not yet! It's almost over, Sans. Just a little longer.
Doctor, it's killing him!
It won't kill him, but shutting it down now almost certainly will. If we don't keep the stream constant, his soul could shatter, or worse. He will survive this. Sans, you'll be...
Sans screamed. Bone-shaped bullets exploded from the wall behind him, destroying several shelves of equipment. Dr. Beatus yelped and ducked to avoid the spray of glass. It was working, but not at all as Gaster had expected or hoped. His heart was pounding. The computer was flashing several warning signs, and the monitor on the side of the machine was glitching. 15 seconds left. Gaster reached for a kill switch, hand shaking. Shutting it down now could be catastrophic, but the way Sans was screaming...
Almost there, Sans. Almost there. Beatus, his vitals. Dr. Beatus!
Everything's elevated, still in the safe zone, but... Sans made a sound like an injured dog and bones erupted from the floor. One struck Dr. Beatus and bowled him over. Gaster dodged two that almost went straight into the machine.
6 seconds, Sans. We're almost there.
Gaster!
Sans' voice broke around his name.
Doc, I can't, please!
3, 2, 1.
The machine shut down, the beam of light vanished, and Sans slumped in the chair. Gaster shoved the machine out of the way and summoned his bullets to shatter all the bones in his path. Then he rushed to the side of the chair. Sans was breathing, but his eyelights had flickered out, leaving empty black sockets. He looked like he was in shock.
Sans? Sans, it's over.
Gaster gingerly touched Sans' shoulder. The skeleton flinched away as if burned. Gaster withdrew his hand immediately. Nearby, Dr. Beatus had pulled himself to his feet with a groan.
Easy now. It's over. You're all right.
The lights came back into Sans' eyes and he hissed a breath through his teeth. I'm okay. Sans! Dr. Beatus grabbed Sans' lab coat and ran to the other side of the chair. He carefully laid the coat across Sans like a blanket. I'm so sorry. None of the simulations indicated that we should have had someone from the medical team here to monitor all this. We should have...
No medical doctor in the underground would have known what to do about this. Nothing like this has ever been attempted before now. Sans, follow my finger.
Gaster held up a finger and watched as Sans slowly tracked its movements.
Even the most complex of simulations cannot account for everything. There was always the chance of unexpected effects.
Gaster lowered his finger. Sans seemed to be out of the woods.
You're all right now, Sans.
Sans sank lower into the chair and covered his face with both hands. I didn't think it would hurt that much. I've never felt anything like that. How do you feel now? Like I took a dip in the magma. Sans slowly rolled to the side, wincing and shuddering. Wait, Sans?
Sans, you shouldn't move yet.
I'm okay. Sans slid out of the chair, tried to stand and failed. He sank to the floor and curled onto his knees, his lab coat tangled around him. Oh, geez, Sans. Dr. Beatus draped the lab coat over his shoulders. Sans pulled the coat tighter, almost vanishing beneath it. I'm okay. I'm fine. Dr. Beatus wrapped an arm around Sans and sank to the floor with him. Gaster looked down at them, one hand tied against his stomach. He felt ill. He'd made a mistake. Sans looked so small, helpless. What had been the point of all this? Why had he thought that trying to strengthen Sans' soul with something as unpredictable as human soul energy was a good idea? This was reckless. And since when was Gaster reckless?
Sans,
Gaster crouched down, but didn't trust himself to approach.
I'm sorry. If I'd had any idea this would hurt you so much.
Hey. Sans shifted enough so that he could peer up at Gaster. Hey, don't sweat it, okay? I'm fine. Everything's fine. It worked. Check. He held out a hand, palm up. With a flash of faint light, he summoned an array of bones that spun in a wheel above his hand. After a moment, he let the bullets fizzle out. It worked. It's easy now. Sans glanced around the room, at the bones protruding from the wall and floor. Sorry for the mess, though. Gaster smiled a little and laid a hand on Sans' shoulder. He didn't flinch away this time. Sans chuckled softly. It was worth it, right? He closed his eyes and he slumped forward. Gaster and Dr. Beatus caught him. Worth it. I can finally protect him. Sans passed out.